Hello, I'm Buster. If you're reading this, it means one of two things. Either I'm dead, or I simply haven't returned to what was once my hideout. Like you, I've managed to survive this hell that a bunch of idiots created. I've been lucky, really. Lucky. I was an electrician, and that has helped me a lot. Like any other Saturday, I was drinking beer alone in my apartment. My shift was over, and I was watching a soccer match. I live alone, so I was having a great time. It was my moment of rest after an exhausting week. I settled into my couch with a bag of chips beside me and a beer can in my other hand. The game was intense, a tie that kept the tension alive until the last minute. And then, the screen went black. For a moment, I thought it was a signal issue, but soon an emergency message appeared on the TV. Urgent announcement. A monotonous robotic voice reported an incident at a laboratory in Atlanta. They mentioned a possible attack by a foreign country and urged everyone to stay indoors. It's 8 o'clock on a Saturday, idiots. No one's going to listen to you, I thought. I wasn't the only one reacting that way. My phone buzzed with messages from friends mocking the broadcast. Another conspiracy to sell vaccines, someone wrote. Biological warfare? Yeah, sure, and I'm the president, joked another. What annoyed me the most was that they canceled the game. With an irritated sigh, I turned off the TV and went to bed, unconcerned. It wouldn't be the first time the government tried to scare people with some invisible threat. The next morning, I was woken up by sirens and a moving loudspeaker repeating, "Do not leave your homes." I got up groggy and walked to the window. From my third-floor apartment, I could see patrol cars driving through the streets, broadcasting the warning over and over. The city felt strange, as if people had vanished overnight. I turned on the TV, expecting the news, and to my surprise, last night's announcement was real. The images on the screen showed overcrowded hospitals, streets blocked with barricades, and reporters wearing masks while talking about an unknown disease. The virus spread like a common cold, but its symptoms were unusual. First, extreme exhaustion, followed by days of deep sleep. But the most terrifying part was what happened next. People woke up in a state of uncontrollable rage, attacking anyone nearby. Scientists tried to explain the phenomenon, claiming it was an extreme survival instinct combined with an adrenaline surge. They also mentioned that the infected sweated excessively, even while asleep. I always keep my pantry full. My parents taught me to shop for a whole month. It saves money. Money. As if that matters now, I thought. While the news kept warning people, I checked my supplies. I had enough canned food, water, and essentials to last a good while without stepping outside. Meanwhile, the internet's reaction was mixed. Some people panicked and locked themselves inside, while others mocked the situation, claiming it was just another government strategy for control. Memes and conspiracy theories flooded social media. A user with the pseudonym Jeff51 posted something that caught everyone's attention. On a forum, he uploaded pictures of what seemed to be a hidden laboratory. He claimed that multiple viruses had been developed there, designed to devastate entire countries without damaging their infrastructure. His post went viral within hours. But soon, he stopped responding to comments. 2 weeks passed. The news no longer discussed control or containment. The virus had escaped Atlanta and was spreading across the country. Flights were canceled, roads blocked, and the military took over several cities. A curfew was imposed, but no one believed the government had things under control anymore. I looked out my window, and the scene had changed in a disturbing way. It was no longer just patrol cars roaming the streets with their flashing lights. Now there were ambulances too. But the most unsettling thing was what I managed to see in the distance using my phone's zoom. Coffins, not wooden ones, but metal. Rows and rows of them being transported in trucks. The nurses and police officers who had previously only worn face masks were now clad in much more advanced protective gear. Full body suits, dark visors, airtight seals. They looked like astronauts. In the middle of the city. I don't know if it was fear, paranoia, or cold reality hitting me in the face, but I knew something was seriously wrong. I didn't think twice. I barricaded my apartment entrance with everything I had on hand: furniture, the fridge, even some planks I nailed to the door using my toolbox. Then I searched for my weapons. I'm not a gun fanatic, but I'm not naive either. I had 4. A couple of pistols, a shotgun, and a hunting rifle I inherited from my grandfather. I had always liked the idea of feeling protected, but I never imagined I would actually need to use them like this. During the first days of the lockdown, I used to talk to my neighbors over the phone. We weren't exactly friends, but we shared information and tried to keep each other's spirits up. Until one day, I stopped. The atmosphere changed when I heard gunshots in the nearby apartments. Screams, banging, then the sound of shattering glass. Someone had jumped. I ran to the window and looked down. It was a woman, or at least it used to be. Her body lay on the pavement, a dark stain spreading beneath her. But the worst part came next. In less than 30 seconds, the woman stood. Back up. A sickening crack echoed through the street as her bones snapped back into place. She let out a shriek, one that burned itself into my mind, and then took off running aimlessly in her senseless sprint. She came across a man. She lunged at him with inhuman violence. He reacted instantly, pulling out a gun and shooting her point blank. 1 shot, 2, 3. She didn't stop. The woman kept attacking him as if pain didn't exist in her body. The man emptied his clip. 10 shots later, the woman's body finally collapsed. The man stood there, trembling, his arm torn open and bleeding profusely. No one went to help him. No one dared. That was the moment I truly understood the horror of our nature. The city was lost. Days passed. The sirens stopped. At first, I felt relieved, but then I understood what it really meant. There was no one left to respond to emergencies. The power started to fail, first in brief flickers, then for entire hours. I knew it would eventually go out for good. I rationed my food. If I ate only the bare minimum, I calculated I could survive for at least 2 months without leaving. The internet still worked sporadically, and the networks were flooded with disturbing images. Stories of missing people, of the infected who never returned once the authorities took them. Desperate messages from people searching for their families. One message kept appearing, more and more in the forums. If someone gets infected, don't let them wake up. Shoot them while they sleep, even if it's your mother. One user, in particular, posted something that chilled me to the bone. His name was Chris. He had documented the entire infection process of his father. Apparently, the transformation time varied from person to person. Some took days to change. His father took 4. Chris explained that his family had quarantined in separate rooms. But his father, stubborn as he was, went out one day to tend to his livestock. Maybe he came into contact with someone infected. Maybe he just breathed the wrong air. It didn't matter. The inevitable happened. When he noticed his father starting to show the first symptoms, he tied him to a metal bed in their barn and began recording. For the first few days, his father only slept, sweating profusely and murmuring incoherently in his dreams. Then came the fever, the tremors, and the erratic breathing. On the 4th day, his eyes opened, and they were no longer human. Chris fed him for a week using a stick, carefully extending the food toward him. Despite the fury in his gaze, his father ate. The instinct to feed was still there. Maybe there was hope. Until the impossible happened. One night, as Chris was checking his father's restraints, he heard him whisper, Chris, are you there?" His voice was different, but the tone was unmistakable. Chris froze. For hours he tried talking to him. No response. Just the same phrase, repeating over and over. as if his father was trapped somewhere inside that thing. As if he was trying to hold onto his humanity. Chris made a decision. With extreme caution, he put on his protective suit, loaded his rifle, and opened the barn door. His father started shrieking. His muscles tensed, his body convulsed violently against the restraints. Then, without warning, he vomited a black, tar-like substance. The liquid splattered onto the protective suit and began corroding it instantly. Chris screamed. He fired, once, twice, over and over, until his father stopped moving. The video ended with a message displayed on the screen: "Shoot them while they sleep." At first, the absence of electricity was just an inconvenience, but now, it's a death sentence. The city has been fading away little by little, just like its inhabitants. From my window, I've seen infected people collapsing in the streets. Some have remained motionless on the sidewalks in front of their homes. They're just there, asleep. No one goes near them. We're all afraid of getting infected, though we don't really know if we're already carrying the virus in our bodies. That thought haunts me. On the forums, people mentioned immunity, that maybe those of us still standing have a natural resistance. Or maybe it's only a matter of time before we fall too. My thoughts were interrupted by a gunshot. It came from the apartment next door. I jolted and ran to check. It was Bill, a crazy old gun enthusiast who had kept a low profile until now. But there he was, on his balcony, armed with an assault rifle, shooting at the ones lying asleep in the street. Not just anyone, only the infected. He fired calmly, with terrifying precision. Almost every shot hit its mark right in the head. I scanned the street. I saw other open windows, people like me, watching in a mix of confusion and fear. Then I noticed a man on the other side of the street, his face pale, dark circles under his eyes. He was holding a large sign with a desperate message: "My name is Carl. I need food." Bill read the message and held up a sign of his own. "Want help?" I froze. Carl nodded. They communicated through gestures. The plan was simple. Carl would go down to gather supplies from a store right below his building. He couldn't use the stairs because some of the infected were inside, so he planned to lower himself with a rope to the street. Bill would take care of any threats. I watched Carl descend cautiously. He was thin, his movements clumsy, as if weakness was about to take him down. He reached the store and struggled to lift the metal shutter with a crowbar. It looked like it had already been looted. Some shelves were empty, then a guttural roar echoed through the street. A chill ran down my spine. Carl heard it too and bolted out of the store. He tried to climb back up, but something grabbed him with monstrous strength. I saw exactly what attacked him, and my stomach churned. It was a humanoid creature, but its head was deformed, its skull crushed and stretched backward. Its mouth was filled with massive, jagged teeth, like a crocodile's. It was at least 2 meters tall, with bulging muscles and torn skin, as if it had been flayed alive. Bill reacted instantly, firing several rounds. The bullets made the creature stagger, but it didn't fall. Carl screamed, kicked, struggled to break free, but the thing sank its jaws into his neck. His scream turned into a wet, gurgling sound. Bill fired again, this time aiming for the creature's head. This time, the shots worked. The thing collapsed onto the ground, writhing for a few seconds before going still. Carl's body lay beside it, lifeless, his eyes wide open in a look of absolute terror. For a moment, silence took over. Then, a terrifying thought hit me like a sledgehammer. If you leave the infected alone long enough, they mutate. I turned quickly, staring into the darkness of my apartment. The shadows seemed thicker, as if something was lurking within them. How many infected were in my building? How many of them were asleep, just waiting to turn into something worse? All the batteries I used to rely on, even at work, are dead. My phone is just a paperweight now. My flashlight only flickers for a few seconds before going out completely. The radio, where I once listened to messages from other survivors, is now just dead weight. No signal, no voices, no hope left on the airwaves. I am completely isolated. I have little food left, maybe enough for another week, and my bottled water is running low. Every sip I take is a reminder that soon there will be no more. I can't stay here, waiting for a salvation that may never come. I've decided to leave this building. Outside, the street is a cemetery. The bodies that once only slept have reached an alarming state of decay. Flies and other insects swarm around the corpses, and the stench is unbearable. Those who collapsed and never woke up are now just rotting remains. Their swollen, deformed faces remind me that they too were once human. Other shooters join Bill. For weeks, they fired relentlessly, ensuring that the sleepers never rose again. Their gunshots have stopped now. Maybe they've eliminated all the potential mutants. But the terrifying thing isn't what's in the streets. It's what hides inside the buildings. At night, I hear noises in the hallways. Something wanders around, step by step, dragging what sounds like a body, or maybe its own deformed limbs. It seems that after their initial burst of adrenaline, the creatures grow calmer, but they still roam in the darkness, as if they're waiting, as if they know we'll eventually fall into their territory. Several neighbors, desperate with hunger, came up with a plan. They tied ropes around their bodies and descended along the sides of the building to search for food. One group managed to reach a small grocery store. By some blessing, they didn't encounter any infected. They returned with bags full of whatever was left: cans of soup, packs of crackers, bottles of water, and some products already close to expiration. From my window, I threw down a bag attached to a rope, and they generously shared some with me. They also gave part of the haul to the shooters, ensuring they would keep protecting us. "There's nothing left," they said. There wasn't much to take. Someone had already been there before. 2.5 months have passed since it all began. My body has withered. My cheeks are sunken, my eyes surrounded by dark circles. I barely sleep, barely eat, barely live. The world has been reduced to a series of survival decisions, day after day. Today I've decided to eat half of what I have left. I need strength. The rest will be for the journey. Tomorrow, I will leave this place. A group of neighbors and I will venture beyond this concrete trap. We have a destination, a supermarket a few blocks away. If we make it, we might find supplies, maybe even a refuge. If we're lucky, we might find other survivors. And if not, well, at least we won't starve to death in here. I don't know what awaits us. But what I do know is that I don't want to die trapped in this apartment, waiting for a miracle that will never come. Cold Buster, I will return when it's all over. I wonder what became of Buster. I wish someone had told him that those things have different levels of mutation. The supermarket, it was infested when I passed by. There were only corpses and those creatures. This building is dead. There are no humans, nor infected. Out of the 10 journals I managed to find here, this one was the best. It was a good haul.